Hey, welcome to the No Guts, No Game podcast. This podcast is dedicated to help you navigate the journey of buying a Sandler franchise. So whether you've just started the investigation or you're knee deep into the decision process, we've got you covered. Hi, I'm Dave Mattson, Executive Chairman and President of Franchising here at Sandler. In each episode, I'm interviewing a Sandler franchisee who is in your shoes. Now, maybe they were investigating 2 years ago or 2 months ago, but they're gonna share their experiences, their insights, the questions that they had when they were sitting in your chair. The goal of the podcast is to provide you valuable information and firsthand accounts from their perspective that will help you in your decision-making process for you and your family. So sit back, relax, and get ready to hear from those who've already jumped into entrepreneurship with a Sandler franchise. Hey, Jay, welcome to the No Guts, No Game podcast. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Good to be with you.
So, Jay, first, how long have you been a franchise now?
So it started in January. So entering my eighth month.
Eighth month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so actually, we have lots of ways to go here today. I want to talk a bit about why you came in, and there's different groups of people looking at a franchise, right? Either, hey, I don't know anyone, or hey, I'm not sure, I've never trained before in my life, I'm too young. Hey, maybe I'm on the end of my career path, maybe I should stay, and I want to get your picture. But also, I'd love to maybe now switch at the end and talk a little bit about what's it look like in the first 8 months. I mean, You're 8 months into it, so what do you have? And there'd be a ton of questions for people looking at a franchise to want to ask you a million of them. So I'll try to ask the big ones here. But that's really what I'd like to go here today for our listeners. So let's talk about a little bit your story. Where did you come from, first of all? And where were you in your career when you just decided maybe it's time?
Yeah. So it's interesting. My journey to Sandler. So I was 30 plus years in corporate America. So always in one industry, and that's the automotive industry. Moved all over the country, originally from Michigan. And so in the automotive space, you're moving all over the place. So did that for exactly 33 years to be exact. And then what happened, and by the way, great career. The second half of that career was here in Atlanta, Georgia as a sales leader. But then as happens in big corporations, there was a restructuring. I think it was late 2019. And as often can happen, there was an opportunity to stick it out, stay with the company, or take, in my case, a pretty good early retirement offer. And it was the right time because, what had been gnawing on me in the last probably 5+ years is just looking for something that allowed me to sort of exercise my skills in a little bit more independent way, right? Looking for something beyond corporate. So it was a pretty easy decision to leave corporate America. Having said that, it was November, I think 2019 when I made the decision. So you know what happened?
Yeah, timing wasn't this.
Yeah. So I thought, and I had put out some feelers, and quite frankly, the feelers that I put out were traditional, staying in the automotive space, et cetera. Sure. And then everything froze. And so around that time, March, April of 2020, one of my good clients, one of my good customers, offered me an opportunity to come work for him. So in the car, still in the car business. So I did that. It quite frankly was an easy transition. Good client, good friend. Paid the bills. So my wife and I, empty nesters at the time. So we're leaving Atlanta and we moved to North Carolina, which we did. So we moved to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And quickly realized that while the opportunity was good, working for my friend and client was good, it just wasn't going to work long term in Winston-Salem. We missed Atlanta. We'd been here for, Dave, 20 years, raised our kids here. So had a great conversation with the former boss, moved back to Atlanta, left on great terms. And still trying to figure out what the next chapter looked like. And then there was another path that was pretty easy. And then as I got recruited to come to work for an automotive M&A firm handling, brokering the sale of dealerships. Okay. And again, it was just presented to me. It was easy. It's in my space.
Yeah. Why not, right? The space.
It's in Atlanta. And so I did that for a little less than a year while still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And when I started to reflect on what I'm passionate about, several things resonated. One is the profession of selling. The second half of my career with the VW Group was a sales leader here in Atlanta. And I always saw sales as a sport. I love sports, and I always saw selling as that, right? It's competitive, it's challenging. You get out of it what you put into it. You have to train hard, all of those things. So really was attracted to selling. The other piece that really resonated was just people development. When I was in corporate, I really leaned into the development of my people, took a great interest in that, and invested in their futures. Really enjoyed that. And then this training element. I had an opportunity, sometimes formally, sometimes informally, to do some training, be in the classroom, and really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Got the bug. And I will say, through my 30-year career, I had the opportunity to participate in a lot of training, leadership development. And I always leaned into it, and I always thought, boy, that's pretty cool, right? And I really took notice of the really good facilitators, because I experienced some good ones and maybe some not so good ones. Yeah. So with all of that, I said, that's really where I want to go with this. And so I think through LinkedIn, ended up getting connected with Al Simon here in Atlanta, and we had some conversations about maybe how we could partner. And as I tell Al, and he tells me, I dragged my feet, and he went another direction, as you know. And I said, okay, that leaves me with one choice, and that's start from scratch. And, so
you were going to partner with a franchisee, Al Simon, for those who don't know Al,
correct,
in Atlanta.
Correct.
And for whatever reason, he ended up going somewhere else because you were investigating, which is 100%
right.
I mean, absolutely you should have done.
Yeah.
So lost the opportunity, still found Sandler was it. And then I guess you came to us.
Yeah, and I will say I was not familiar with Sandler prior to connecting with Al. I'd done some research, and I was looking at some coaching franchises. But once I discovered Sandler and did a lot of research, probably since talking to Al, it was a good almost 2 years, Dave, before I joined the franchise. But it had everything that I just mentioned, right? A training business, a franchise model, which I like. I come from a franchise world, of course. Yep. And so, the decision wasn't easy, but I said, this is it. And I'm not getting any younger. And so the time to do it is now, and carry this out through the remainder of my career. That was late last year. Went through initial training in December and went live, so to speak, January of this year.
So let's talk a bit about something was gnawing at you for this time, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm wondering, and who knows, but I just wonder if COVID didn't happen, would you have accelerated saying something's missing, right? Because it was easy at the time to take those side jobs, but I'm kind of, as you're talking, I'm wondering, we could have probably met 3 years earlier, 2 years earlier, if in fact that didn't happen, because you would have sat there and reflected, I'm in the same industry, which is always common. You're going to leave the job, stay in the same industry, but because you're familiar with it, you know it, you're leveraging it. Right. But which kudos for you. You just said, got it. That's an easy path for me, but there's something gnawing. And so 2 questions.
Yeah.
Family support. And did all of your acquaintances, your friends, people that are in the industry saying, Jay, what are you doing? Like, were you the crazy one? What happened to Jay?
Yeah, you know what? Believe it or not, no. And I say no for a couple of reasons. I'll start with family, and that is, and I might even get a little emotional, Dave, here, but a very supportive family. So, of course, my wife said, hey, are you sure, we can do this? Are you sure we can do this? And, of course, I said, yeah, we can do this, right? Don't worry, from all aspects, personally, financially, we can pull this off. And she's extremely supportive and knows the way I'm wired. So she was very supportive. And I have 2 kids, a son and a daughter, and they were sort of like, Dad, go for it. Not only that, but with reinforcement, saying, hey, knowing what you like to do, Dad, this just sounds like a great decision. I'll tell you a funny story about family involvement as it relates to the name of my company, my LLC. Sometime in the journey, obviously in the process, I should say, when I needed to set up the LLC, I came up with a list of 10 potential names, sent it out to my two kids and my wife, and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And they were all sayings that they've heard me say before, things that resonate. And number one was taken in the state of Georgia, but number two was not, and that's all in. My LLC is all in selling, and the reason that's relevant is my kids will tell you. I always say, look, if you're going to do it, you got to be all in.
Be all in. Yeah.
It is probably a fault that I have, Dave, that I can't do anything without being all in.
Yeah.
I gave up golf years ago because I just didn't have the time to be all in.
Yeah.
So that's the level of support. They had fun helping Dad choose a LLC name.
I should probably have taken your same philosophy when it comes to golf, because I always say next year's my year. So I don't know. I've been saying that for a long time. So I don't know. Let me ask you, though, a personal question. You had support from your wife. You had support from your friends and your children. Did you ever sit back and just say, when you started getting close, like, because, you could have gone right back into either the industry, which probably had said, okay, enough. But you ever thought about going back into corporate and just changing the industry? And hey, maybe I just try something new in corporate. It's safer. Did you ever have that? You're sitting by yourself, no one's watching. Did you ever have those thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. There were, through that whole decision process, there were some sleepless nights where you say, man, what am I doing? Because it clearly wasn't the path of least resistance, right? It was clearly a more challenging path. And I could have jumped back into corporate, but I didn't. But I'll say that to say this. I'm big on sayings, right? And my family would tell you, one of the things that I believe in is no regrets. And that was probably the piece that I said, you know what, if I get back into corporate and do the same old, I'm going to have a regret. And so that's what sort of put me over the fence to say, you got to do this. You love a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. And it aligns with this idea of no regrets.
Can I ask you, because look, it would have been a lot safer if you just took your severance, counted it as gravy, because you've gotten a couple different jobs. So you probably didn't go through your severance like most people do. You're like, okay, I'll put that towards retirement or something.
Right.
And that would have been easy.
Right.
But when you had the no regret thing, I guess one of the things that I would be curious about is, why wouldn't you go back to corporate? And I understand, hey, I love to, I help develop people my whole career, directly or indirectly, right? Formally or informally.
Right.
But was that it? Or was it, I just want to control my own future, or I don't want to get another one of these letters again because, hey, I don't want, if it happens to me in 5 more years, I'm done. Like I'm done. Like, what was that internal drive that kind of said,
Yeah, a couple things, but the first thing that comes top of mind is being in corporate America. And I'm sure you've heard this before, where you can do more, you can add more value, you have more potential than the corporate world is allowing you to display.
Ceiling on,
that's right. And maybe in situations where you're just in that corporate mentality, and in some cases you're locked into this group strategy that limits your ability to maybe freelance a little bit, for lack of a better word. And the way to explore that was, okay, let me test myself. Let me see how good I really am, which was a scary thing to say to myself, right? And venture into my own deal, and my own deal being at least something that I'm familiar with, either directly or indirectly. And so that was sort of what pushed me over the edge and say, no, don't go back into corporate. Give this a try, lean in, go all in. And I just keep telling myself, I can do it. It's a challenge. I don't have to tell you that. Yeah. But that's sort of how the decision was made.
Yeah, I think after a certain period of time, and I've heard it a million times, if they would allow me to run the company, I would do X,
Yeah.
right? But you're not in charge. I mean, you've got, I always say, you've got to set lines that you have to color within. You can have flexibility within the lines, but when you're in corporate, those are the lines, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're narrow, sometimes they're wide, but you still have the lines. Whereas an entrepreneur, you get to color whatever you want. You know, with a franchise, I always think you got lines, so you, at least you know the success rate and all those types of things. But there's a lot more flexibility. Right. So let's kind of switch gears.
Sure.
Because I think your story's helping those who are trying to figure out: do I just kind of go back into corporate? You know, Sandler used to have this saying. He would always say, "David, you got to decide: are you going to be dead at 60 and buried at 80, or are you going to live your life with no regret?" I mean, basically, in essence, that's what you've said in so many records. And he used to always say that. You don't want to die at 60 and be buried at 80, or you don't want to, you know, I'm like, it's true, actually.
Yeah.
But I would say 90% of the people probably will just live in misery for another 10 years. Like, okay, I can rough this out. Yeah. Let's go to your first 8 months. First of all, let's do your business. Are you by yourself now, or do you have a staff?
So by myself, solopreneur. So yeah, one man team.
One man show. And did you know anyone in your territory? I mean, are you calling in the automotive industry, or are you calling outside of the automotive industry?
Primarily
in those relationships, or what do you
primarily
think?
Outside. And you know, I have certainly leveraged those relationships to some degree, but more consulting, meaning, hey, this is what I do. How do you think it would fit? But quickly discovered maybe automotive retail, maybe that vertical is not, maybe I'll say the path.
That conducive to what we do.
Yeah. And quite frankly, as much as I love auto, you know, leaning it into other industries has been kind of fun.
Exciting.
I have leveraged some of the vendor relationships, had some good conversations with automotive related vendors. Yeah. And that was sort of one of the takeaways is, hey, maybe automotive dealerships, maybe that's not the best space. But certainly in that industry, there's a lot of companies that could be potential ideal clients. And so that's what I've done so far. But I've really, leaned into a lot of different industries in the last.
So did you, when you first started then, let's just go back, did you, walk us through the first couple months? I mean, is it just pure selling? Where was your time blocks? I was spending X amount of my time doing this, X amount of time doing that. What does it look like as a new franchisee? Because you still remember, right? You still have mud on your back here. Yeah. So what did it look like for those who have not made the jump yet?
Yeah, in full transparency, come out of initial training, and obviously with some good ideas and ideas relative to behaviors, but really, how do I spend my time? It's real easy. It's prospecting, it's networking. And I say that on the fly because in my past career, I didn't have to do a lot of networking and prospecting. So it is hitting the ground running with cold outreach, a lot of networking. I'm in a new world now of networking. Yep. So it's been prospecting. Sometimes what I'll do is, before the day starts, I'll do some Sandler stuff, right? Trying to be a product of the product.
Learning the material.
Yeah, learning the material, watching videos. That's kind of usually that's how I'll start my morning to get that piece done. And then it's a combination of going to network meetings, having one-to-ones with folks, managing the cold outreach, whether it's phone calls or emails, all the stuff that you know better than anyone you do in your cookbook to try and make touches, I think is the best way to say it. That's been the primary focus.
Well, I mean, I always think, look, it's a heck of a training consulting practice, but you really got to start with a sales job because then you get the clients to do what you want to be passionate about. But to think that you've opened up a corner store like a yogurt shop and everyone's going to come in and you're wondering, am I on the right side of the street? That's not how this happens. You've got to get clients, right? And your clients, to your point, will bring you to other clients, but you're going to have to do the heavy lifting.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so walk me through a little bit. So you went through initial training, you have a coach. Tell me about your relationship with the network.
Yep. And can I pause for a minute? I want to share something that in my due diligence, I believe prior to become a franchisee, I had a conversation with Bill Bartlett. Okay. And there's two things that are stuck in my memory. One is to lose your ego as you come into the Sandler world. And that has been so relevant, right? Going from someone who was a big leader to now someone who's trying to grow a business. So that's very relevant. And the other thing he said, which you just mentioned, he said, Jay, the number one thing, you got to sell. Because I think I was very focused on, I want to master the Sandler material. And while that's important, he said, look, Jay, at the end of the day, you got to sell, because if you don't have a client, there's no one to train. So those two things have always resonated with me. But yeah, initial training was in December, which was great. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, sure.
But initial training was outstanding. You mentioned the network. One thing, and maybe this is coming from a franchise network that is not necessarily friendly and everybody doesn't play together in the sandbox.
You mean the automotive world?
In the automotive world. Yeah. In my due diligence leading up to signing on with Sandler, talking to franchisees, which I had the opportunity to do, and then since January to now, every touch has been positive. I am so impressed with how supportive the network is. Just honestly blown away, because that's not the world that I come from, right? Just extremely supportive. And I have a coach, as you know, who's obviously a person that's been there, done that, in Scott Sherwin, who is extremely supportive. I have a mentor, as you may or may not know, who's another very successful franchisee. So I can't say enough good things about the support.
Now, are you paying that franchisee, or is it just something that they're just doing? I mean,
They're just doing it. They're just doing it. Yeah. No, I am. Believe me, I am blown away. If I need to prep, say I've got a big prospect discovery meeting coming up, whether it's Scott or whether it's Tim, I put time on their calendar, and they're very generous with their time, and we prep. So no, it's huge.
Yeah. I have to say, Jay, and you said it, but the culture of the franchise network is just indescribable, to be honest with you. I mean, because you're coming from no corporate support. Let's say if you're on your own and hey, you're running the Southeast, so I mean, you are support, you do it,
right?
Type stuff. To certainly you get stuff from home office from us. It's true, but really the franchise network reaches out and just helps each other with lesson plans. And Tim, who I know you work with, he would do a program for you. Like he'll do anything to help you succeed, which is unusual first of all, it's unusual in the business world. Let's be honest. But it's really unusual when you're quote unquote, competitors, let's say, in the market. Now they're different territories, but it's just amazing to me the level of support that the franchisees give each other. And I used to talk to Sandler about this all the time. Like, why is that? Is it because we're corporate misfits in this, or it's just that it's part of our DNA, I guess. And then, and you've experienced it, but it's awesome in my mind. I mean, I can't.
It's fantastic. And again, I didn't know what to expect, but that has blown me away. And the other thing I will say relative, you touched on a minute ago, when you talk about, what did your friends say when you're making the move? I remember having a conversation with a friend saying, hey, you're going to go the franchise route. You've got tremendous background experience. Did you consider doing your own thing? And I never really did. I'm a believer in the support of a franchise network. And Dave, I say that to say the amount of resources from, IP materials is amazing. I mean, I believe regardless of the client's pain or needs, I can pull so much material off the shelf that is so invaluable. So that's been another thing that I've just been pleasantly surprised.
Listen, you probably are awesome at what you do, but that's this much of what you need in order to go and help that client start to finish. So
absolutely.
100%. I think that is a struggle that most people are doing. Like, I've been doing this for 25 years. Why don't I just do it on my own?
Right.
Okay. But first of all, let's think about all the marketing and but let's even get to the content. Like, where's it coming from?
Right.
It's just hard. But I do agree. So let me and I know we're getting up to our time here, but are you in a co-op now, a training co-op? Are you sharing a calendar with other franchisees, or are you developing your own?
Not yet. not yet.
You're delivering your own training.
Correct.
How long does it take you to prep?
So if you know me, and I'm an I, by the way, a disc I. So, so I fear rejection, right? So I prep a lot. But one of the things that came out of IT, which was great, and that is, look, at the end of the day, you have to be 1 week ahead of your client, right? And so that's been my goal. And so, and I enjoy the prep, quite frankly, because delivering the training, as I alluded to earlier, is the fun part. But I'll prep. I probably over prep, but delivering person actually right now in person and soon online with another client that's going to join my ranks. And that'll be virtual, by the way. But no, a lot of prep. And I think, Dave, part of the reason is because I am new to the Sandler brand. The prep requires a little bit more than if I'd been doing this for 2 or 3 years.
Well, I still prep, so I don't know. It's just my nature, right? But so let me ask this: you're still 8 months into it. One thing that you didn't expect, which was a pleasant surprise for you, and you've hit upon a couple of them, but what's the one that sticks out? And then I think the next one would be if you had like one thing that you may have done differently that would help others, like what would it be, or what do you suggest that people ask when they're investigating and talking to other franchisees? Like, what were those things that really helped you make that decision?
Yeah. Well, and you're right. The pleasant surprise, and I don't want to repeat myself, but the support of the network is what resonates. And so, I guess in addition to that, just, pleasant, maybe not so much a surprise because I really expected it, but the gratification that clients receive and the satisfaction that clients receive, when you're working with them, and the gratification that I receive, that's the fun stuff, right? Yeah. Hearing the success stories when someone goes out for a week and they come back and they share them.
Never gets old.
They share those meals. And doing it differently, I guess for me, being new to the prospecting game, right? The cold outreach game, and not necessarily having an industry background that is maybe suited for what I'm doing. It's prospecting strategically, right? Because I probably started by just going wide,
shotgun,
having an ideal of my ideal client, but not really trying to figure it out on the fly. Probably a little bit more due diligence, a little bit more homework before going live in January is something I would recommend. I'm having some conversations now with some franchisees that, believe it or not, are newer than I am, less than 8 months. And that's sort of the advice that I give them is, look, be more strategic in your prospecting than I was.
Use your time wisely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So, last question for you. You happy?
Absolutely.
Family knows you're happy?
Absolutely. Yeah, they do.
No regrets?
Absolutely no regrets.
Good for you. Hey, listen, I appreciate you coming. I know, as you said, you've got 2 gigs going on. So thanks for the time today. And thanks for sharing your story. It was awesome.
Absolutely enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day.
For more information on Sandler franchising opportunities, go to sandler.com/franchising. And don't forget to subscribe to the No Guts, No Gain podcast on your favorite app.